And that's why entrepreneurship is so powerful, because entrepreneurship is a tool that people can use to create their own livelihoods and foundations and institutions to get done whatever it is they feel possible and feel passionate about.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Revolutionary G-Talks. For those who are just joining in, my name is Giselle Ureña, and if you are returning, welcome back to the channel. We're so thankful for you. Today, I am so happy because I had to bring back somebody that had already been in one of our past episodes, Jonathan Allen, but with plus one, Derek, his husband. So I brought them in because they are so unique in terms of their trajectory and their business. So they are the founders of a nonprofit organization, and I bring them because I have interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs that have for-profit businesses or are beginning their entrepreneurship journey, but I don't only want to bring to my audience one point or one perspective. I also want to bring those that are in the nonprofit organization so that you can listen to how they did it and how they're continuing to pursue this career or this journey. So why don't we start with Derek? Introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I did get to see Jonathan's episode. Phenomenal. So I was excited to be here. So yes, I'm Derek Young. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Leadership Brainery. I'll go more into Leadership Brainery after Jonathan introduces himself.
Yes.
Well, hello everybody. Once again, it's good to be back, first and foremost. And thank you for having us back. And now coming, Power Pack.
Yes.
I'm Jonathan Allen. I'm co-founder and director of development for Leadership Brainery. It's really good to be here.
So my first question, what is Leadership Brainery? I know Alan talked about it a little bit in the past, but
Leadership Brainery, just overarching, is an organization focused on access to postgraduate degrees and workforce leadership opportunities. And so when I say postgraduate, I mean master's and doctoral degrees that helps really create career mobility in the workforce. And so we have a few different programs where we work with college students, working professionals, anyone who's on track to get a master's and doctoral degree, so they can get additional support systems, really build that network so when they go in, they can thrive. And then we get them in the workforce, make sure that we have more diversity and equity.
That's important.
And really thinking about those people who are coming from backgrounds and communities that have historically and systematically been barred from these life-changing opportunities, which, beyond the knowledge and education that you gain, it's the networks, the relationships and connections that you build that really create robust support systems that help people get to the next level and navigate many of the barriers that they often run into.
And that is so awesome because I, as an undergraduate right now, I see that there are a lot of organizations that help undergraduate students or help the high school students to make it to college, but then we don't see, or I don't hear much about postgraduate. So that's amazing. That's amazing. So why a nonprofit organization? Why?
So, to your point, so you don't see many organizations that focus on pipeline to advanced education. And that's because a lot of people look at it as a luxury. So, if we can get more folks into college, then the world is solved, right? All our issues are solved. That's not the case. So when we think about master's and doctoral level education, it's the highest level of education. So many of our communities have been barred from education in general for centuries. And so if we are just getting in a point in our society the last 60 years where we're doing more pushes to undergrad, then we really got to create a movement to get more folks in master's and doctoral level. Because when we think about some of the key careers that really gatekeep and hold systems back, you're talking about attorneys or doctors or professors. You have to have an advanced degree to get in those careers. And so it's a lot of other careers that it can help you build greater networks and greater career mobility. But some of those core industries, we really need to ensure that we get more folks into.
Yes.
And the reality is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics show and have been telling us that the sector of the workforce that is growing faster and faster is the segment in which master's and doctoral degrees are being more and more preferred. and in many cases required for some occupations and job positions. And so if we continue to be behind the curve on of enrollment in master's and doctoral degree programs, we will be more and more behind the curve for accessing those jobs, and thus continuing to keep up with the economic advantages of that. And so that's why this is not only a luxury, but a necessity, a state of emergency. It's urgent that we really build a robust movement. We do it quicker and quicker to really ensure that we're creating more accelerated pathways to career mobility.
And to answer your question, to Jonathan's point, that's why it's a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
It's about building a movement. We could have had a for-profit company, but then you focus so much on the profit that you can't focus about the movement, the mission. And we know that when it comes to advancing and creating more equitable education, that you need everybody on board. You need the community involved, you need the businesses involved, you need the academic institutions involved. So how can we create an organization that's mission-based to pull people in, to mobilize, and that's where the support comes, that's where the money comes, that's where the impact comes.
Exactly.
And so that's why we're a nonprofit.
And we are very fortunate that we have a very robust community of stakeholders in different sectors and from different levels that are chipping in to really make this entire work and theory of change come to life. And so we have graduate schools who are Leadership Brainery's members. They've committed themselves to investing more in their DE&I efforts. And so through us, they are recruiting underrepresented talent into their master's and doctoral degree programs and certificate programs. They are receiving opportunities to share best practices with each other so that we are helping to connect them even more. They are then opening opportunities for their current graduate students to mentor aspiring graduate students to learn more about graduate school in general, and then specifically their programs as well. And we have corporations that are investing in our work and really helping to ensure that we can expand our capacity to continue to administer these programs, but also to source talent from their companies who are saying, I want to go back and get my graduate degree so that I can level up and get another promotion in my company and see greater career mobility for myself. And so really those stakeholders really come together as we are also partnering with community organizations that are working at different levels of the spectrum, from those organizations that are supporting kids who are going into college and like the Valedictorian Project, as well as working with those organizations that are even just trying to expose more youth to different pathways they can take, which is a critical issue, right? Exposure, because people don't go after things that they quite often don't imagine is possible. And so it's really important to us that we continue to amplify the possibilities that our young people can take with their careers. And that's why entrepreneurship is so powerful, because entrepreneurship is a tool that people can use to create their own livelihoods and foundations and institutions to get done whatever it is they feel possible and feel passionate about.
Yes, well, to that point about entrepreneurship, you might be wondering, how did Jonathan and Derek start this organization? How did they begin? There is a misconception of nonprofit. You might not make it. You might not be, financially stable. There's so many things that can stop, when you're an undergraduate and you're thinking about, what the heck do I want to do with my life? And, I shouldn't do art because if I'm an artist, I won't make money. I shouldn't do nonprofit because if I work into a nonprofit, I won't be financially stable. But how did you start this journey? How did you begin Leadership Brainery?
Yeah, so I would say, to combat all of that negative thoughts that we have in our own head around how we'll make it, whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, a independent consultant, if you don't put the work in, then it won't be successful.
Period.
Right? At the end of the day. And so, a nonprofit is just a different business format than a for-profit, but it still require, that business thinking, really making sure you have that foundation all the way from the feds and the IRS to your all of your state requirements that you have to file, and then just like we talked about before, really building that community around that foundation. And so Leadership Brainery has been around for a long time. When Jonathan and I were in college, back in Louisiana at Grambling State University, we actually started Leadership Brainery in 2012.
Wow.
Yes, we started Leadership Brainery in 2012, and our initial goal, which still is the foundation of Leadership Brainery today, was to really empower and equip young students and professionals to be ready for leadership roles and to really build more transferable skills that they can take with them anywhere. And so we did that throughout college, graduate school. We went around to different colleges and universities and trained student groups, mostly student government associations. And then when we got into our master's programs and doctoral programs is when we saw the disparity when it comes to folks of color and then folks, more so white folks with privilege who have access to these degrees more than folks from our backgrounds. And so we started talking with the university saying, hey, we see an issue, and we're just not the type of leaders that see an issue and then just bounce. But we had to really ensure that we did something about it. And so the universities kept sharing with us that, we can't find what they deem qualified, diverse candidates. And, of course, we know that we're all ready for an opportunity. Exactly. And so, we share with them, we already have a pipeline of talent that we've been pouring into, investing into, and they have aspirations to do all type of things and make change in our society. And so that's when we turned from consultants to a nonprofit. So we filed as a nonprofit with the state of Massachusetts in 2018.
Wow.
And that's when our model shifted more so instead of only empowering the talent, empowering them and then putting them in the pipeline to ensure we're creating more pathways to education.
And we are growing significantly.
Wow.
And now have a team of 5 full-time staff, which is a great milestone for us.
Wow.
To really even see our fiscal budget evolve over time. This is our biggest capacity building year. We are set on track to raise over $500,000 this year.
Yes!
And for this fiscal year, which ends on June the 30th. And so if you are interested in investing in our work, help us accomplish that. Go to leadershipbrainery.org. Really appreciate everyone. Individuals as well is a very, very important aspect of our base of supporters. Beyond the companies and the academic institutions, we have a host of over 450 individuals who have chipped in, who have invested into our work to make sure that we can continue to do this important and life-changing work.
So if you are thinking about it, should I go to graduate school? Yes, you should.
Yes, you should.
You have the perfect resource right here in Boston, Massachusetts. Yep. Where can they find Leadership Brainery?
So you can find Leadership Brainery almost anywhere. You go to Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, go to leadershipbrainery.org. We have a TikTok now, so you can follow us on TikTok. So our footprint, of course, just Google us. Our physical space is in Back Bay, Massachusetts, in Boston. So you can learn more about that on the website. And since you pointed out folks who want to go to post-grad, we have an amazing free resource. And so Leadership Brainery actually just acquired another nonprofit.
Ooh.
Mergers and acquisitions.
What?
Come on here.
So we acquired another nonprofit started by a Harvard Law student, Nancy Fairbank. And it's called Dear Future Colleague. And so Dear Future Colleague was started by a group of law students from top law schools who were really interested in increasing that pipeline of underrepresented talent. And so they paired current law students with prospective law students. Got a lot of attention. Their first year and a half operating matched over 500 law students with prospective law students for mentor relationships. And so, as these law students are just doing what they do and go off about to work at these great firms and so forth, they were looking for an organization that was sustainable, that can really merge great with DFC. And so one of our board members came to us and shared that he had just talked to the Dean of Admissions at Harvard Law, and some of her students had an amazing project that she feels like fits well with Leadership Brainery.
Wow.
And our first impact summit was at Harvard Law School back in 2019. So, I've worked with them in the past. And so it was really great because DFC they did all this manual mentor matching. And Leadership Brainery, while we had our ambassador program, our Impact Summit, we had mentorship components, but not a structured mentorship program. And so to really advance the mission that we were doing and then fill the gap that they needed for the technology we had, it was just a great merger. And so for the last 10 months, we've been in this process with our attorneys on the whole merger and acquisition. In October, we officially acquired DFC.
Wow.
And so now we have an online platform that folks can sign up for. You can get matched with a mentor. You can access resources for post-grad, scholarship guides, one-stop shop for talent interested in post-grad. So go check that out.
And this is not only for law students.
No,
this is for any field career.
Exactly. So Leadership Brainery currently has 14 member schools. And we offer over 600 master's, doctoral degrees, and certificate programs out of all of our member schools.
Wow.
So it's in every industry.
In every industry. So if you're thinking about business, law, medical, anything, and you just need that extra support, that extra push, Leadership Brainery is the place.
We got you.
So my question is, what would be your word or advice for any student that's out there right now? I know many that would love to enter the nonprofit or maybe start their own nonprofit. What would be your biggest advice? I'll start with you, John.
One of the first things that people should always do is really understand your why for a nonprofit at the end of the day. There's so many different business entities that people can choose, whether that is an LLC or a B Corp, which is, I think, an underexposed form of incorporation, being able to have some of those corporate infrastructure, but having a purpose that is still aligned with producing some type of social good. But then there is the nonprofit entity, which is incorporated, but then there's the loop of becoming a 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit, which allows you to be exempt from state and federal taxes. But then people who contribute to your nonprofit is then able to get a tax deductible write-off when they contribute to your organization. So first, educating yourself on the different types of corporate and company incorporation, and really saying, okay, which one makes sense to me? And that comes with considerations around liability as well, whether or not you can be personally held liable, or whether or not you have a fiduciary responsibility to make a profit to the owners, which is in a for-profit sense, or if you just have a responsibility to ensure that all of the resources that have come through that organization be used to accomplish a particular mission. And so the more educated you become about the different types of incorporation, the more informed you are in terms of making a decision about which aligns with you. But in doing so, that alludes then to another suggestion, and that is to dive deep in laying a very healthy foundation from the jump. So often we first start with just doing the work out of a sense of, I would say, innocence. Quite often people are just trying to do what it is they're passionate about, and so they get to doing that, but then they find out later that, oh, I was supposed to incorporate, I was supposed to file and register with the state, I shouldn't have been fundraising. And that's how so many people get into situations and circumstances by not doing that homework up front and prioritizing your foundation, which is your systems and your operations and your business, before necessarily trying to do everything that your mission requires of you. Make sure that you have your ducks in a row to make sure that your mission can actually be sustained and come to life without running into pitfalls. Which you might. But that comes with the territory, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, you should, right? If you don't try, you won't know.
That's right.
And I think that's the biggest piece of advice too, is to Jonathan's point, you have this foundation, so much to learn, but of course you won't learn it unless you just get started. And so getting started, just a quick Google search of what do I need to start a nonprofit in Mass or New York or wherever you may be, watching this California, they'll give you a list of everything you need to do. One of the simple things that people forget, then I'm gonna move on to my actual advice, you have an A2 form in Massachusetts. And so a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I need to start collecting donations. And so they ask people for donations. But in Massachusetts, you actually have to get permission to ask for donations from the public. And so it's a simple form called an A2 form that you have to submit to the Secretary of State and say, hey, I have this idea and I want to fundraise from the public for it. So that way the state can keep up with, well, how much money is going to your organization and so forth. There's things like that they're, they need to be informed about, right? And so, people tend to miss those small steps, and then that's why 10 years down the line, the government can say, hey, you didn't do this all this time, and now we can take your organization away from you. And so many people like us who may not have had that exposure and information, that's why we're just like, oh, wow, there's so many nonprofits who have billion-dollar budgets. How did they get there? And it was really that compliance, that law, all of that stuff that they've had exposure to and had help in the process. And so make sure you set that core foundation. Make sure you connect with folks in the industry. And so one thing that just kind of comes with our background, we have a lot of lawyers in our network. And so that's really helpful if you start a nonprofit, get some lawyers affiliated with you. They can do a lot of things pro bono. So when it comes to filing your paperwork, your 501c3 status, we had our lawyers do that for free. That was their in-kind donation to Leadership Brainery. And so still on our board, we have about 4 attorneys. They do a lot of compliance and just making sure that we stay on the court with things. And so, that foundation is key, and then consistency. Like, just keep going. You'll make mistakes, you'll have, ups and downs, but you got to keep going. If you don't keep going, then it won't keep going. And I think that's the biggest thing. I look at Leadership Brainery's journey and some of the times where it was just like, oh my goodness, it's so tough. We went through one period back in 2017. I had started working at Leadership Brainery full time. I was in that season where it was just like, hey, if I'm going to make sure this worked, then I got to give all my energy. And we were doing okay, but then in the end of 2018, it was just like, okay, I'm going to have to go get a job because, it's working, but it's not enough to feed and sustain. And so went and got a job for a year and a half, got back equipped, continued to work on Leadership Brainery. And now for the last 2 years, we've been full-time and then hired more full-time folks. And so you do have to evolve, but you got to stay consistent. If I would have just gave up, it would have been like, okay, well, we don't have anything now. And 2020 was a really pivotal point for us, and we had some great successes. And so, just don't give up. Don't suffocate your mission. One of my great online mentors, John Henry, for-profit entrepreneur, but still take a lot from him because nonprofit has a lot of for-profit parts. He said, don't suffocate your vision. A lot of folks, you have an idea and you want it to work that exact way. And when you put something into the world, it has this life of its own. And so you kind of got to evolve with that and limit your expectations a bit of making that perfect, and let it take the life of its own. If your clients start really honing in on one point of how you do interviews, you may be like, okay, well, I need to maybe do that a little bit more, just because that's what is attracting, the business success. And so really ensuring that when you start something, keep it started, be committed, but don't suffocate it.
Wow.
Yes. And I think that's so powerful. I just want to touch on the piece that you mentioned about nonprofits having for-profit parts, and I think that's really important because so many people try to run nonprofits in this imaginary nonprofit way. And the reality is we must run nonprofits very rigorously, in a very sophisticated way, very intentionally, and ensure that we are competing at the end of the day with these markets, with the free market that is out there, and really make sure that our organizations are set up to be sustainable, to scale, to succeed. And that means that they have to be able to predict better how their resources is going to move the needle on certain outcomes. And the more that we use data and evaluation and measurement, is the more that we can do that, and really make sure we're building out systems that increase our efficiency, our productivity, and our effectiveness overall. And honing in on that business fundamentals is what's really key to really making sure that the organization can be sustainable.
Yeah. So first of all, if you aspire to be a owner or founder of a nonprofit, first, don't give up. Don't give up. Stay consistent. And like they mentioned, educate yourself and make sure you have relationships that are going to embrace and pour into that vision. And don't suffocate it. Don't suffocate that vision. Let it grow, let it evolve, and take its shape, and just continue pouring into it. Because what you have and what you want to bring into this world matters, and it's going to help a lot, just like Leadership Brainery. So what can we expect in 2022 from Leadership Brainery?
Oh goodness, that's a great question. So we have Leadership Brainery Clubhouse opening up. So it is a incubator in Back Bay neighborhood of Boston on Beacon Street for graduate students and young professionals to have a safe space where they can mobilize, access professional development, access some social events so they can have fun and actually see the potential of Boston. So many people come here and are from here for graduate school, and then they get these amazing degrees and they leave and they go elsewhere. And so how can we really show folks that Boston does have a lot of potential? If we didn't have this huge brain drain, we can really pour from the folks who are from here, for the folks who may come here for school, and see how do we come together and make greater impact in this city that has lacked a lot of civil movements compared to a lot of other cities, especially in the South.
Yeah, well, you better come on in, because you're going to catch me in that clubhouse. What about you? Anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, and more thought leadership from Leadership Brainery. We are expanding our capacity to be out on social media and have critical conversations at the clubhouse as well, so that we're raising more awareness around the issue, around lack of access to master's and doctoral degrees, and then also into those management level and senior level roles throughout the workforce. And so more thought leadership from us is what you will see, and we really encourage folk to get involved with spreading the word, with raising awareness around this, because the more that we're able to get people from underrepresented backgrounds, Black and brown folk, people from lower socioeconomic status and backgrounds, from the LGBTQ plus community, people who are the first in their families to go to college and be on this land. It is an opportunity to really level us up, to gain access to greater wealth. And that's why it's important for all of us to make sure that we have lawyers and doctors and business executives and healthcare professionals who come from our similar shoes and socioeconomic circumstances, who can really lead with equity and intentionality and really help recalibrate the way that our systems are in America. And that's what it requires. It seats at the table.
Yes, there is a seat at the table for you, for us, and from everybody else.
Yes.
So why don't you click the link below in the caption, the leadershipbrainery.org.
Leadership Brainery.
Leadershipbrainery.org. And thank you again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It is an easy process, so just click on that link and sign up. Get a consultation with them, whatever it is. Get yourself more familiarized. And if you believe in this vision, why don't you share with your family, with your loved ones, and let's continue to expose this opportunity to all of those who are out there. Once again, thank you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.